Okay, hi, I'm back, and I'm here to talk about the fourth step. We finished the third step, and right after that, it suggests that we get into action. And the fourth step is the beginning of some real action. This is where we take a fearless and moral inventory of ourselves. And this is where we are asked to take a look at the things in our lives that are working, that are still working. There's some things that are still working, and things that aren't working so well. Things that have expired, sort of like some of the ways that I cope that perhaps I've brought into my present experience from my past, maybe even when I was a kid, things that I learned growing up in the family that I was in, things that I grew up. If you grew up in an alcoholic family, you certainly have some coping mechanisms, and they might not be necessary, they might not be appropriate, they might not be effective, and we never really take time to stop to think about, are these useful anymore? And sometimes we don't even realize that we're doing them. But the fourth step is a great catch-all for all of these things. And we're going to start with what we call the resentment inventory. Now, my definition of resentment is the idea of the Latin root word sentire, which means to feel. And whenever you put the word re in front of a word, it means to repeat it over and over. So resentment is feeling these feelings every time I tell the story. And it's typically not a good story. It's typically something I'm carrying around, and I'm pointing the finger at somebody or something else. And if they would just have not done that, or if they would just be different, then I would be okay. So we want to get these resentments down on paper. And we're not making any judgments about them. We're not going to beat ourselves up about this. We're just going to go down. Here's the most important part: down that left-hand column where, and I wish I could show it to you, but because I'm doing this on selfie mode, this is backwards. But over here in this column, it is the resentment column. And it says in here, I listed people, institutions, and principles with whom I am angry, I am resentful at. And this includes grudges, regrets, envy, prejudices, and those we're annoyed with, agitated by, or that let us down, quote unquote. So we want to get names down here. And all we're going to do is go down this column and just start listing names. And we're not going across. And this is the trick about this fourth step that a lot of people run into. If I were going to go across and do these resentments, I'd probably get to about the third one and I'd be overwhelmed and I wouldn't want to do the work. And a lot of people get stuck on this fourth step. This is the easier, softer way to do it. We're just going to go straight down and just start writing names. That's the only thing that you have to do. And then when you think you're done, stop, say a prayer, ask if there's any more people or institutions that I need to put on that list, and anything that comes to your mind, go ahead and write it down, and then just stop. And I'll do another video when we get finished with that first one. Now, if there's somebody that you have multiple resentments at, you might want to skip a box so that you give yourself plenty of room. They suggest that you print off like 10 pages, 10 copies of this page, because if you've been carrying around resentments, you might have a couple that you want to write down. And the other thing is that you can just use this page and a notebook, and you can just draw straight lines down and just keep it going. And once you know what the columns are, you wouldn't really have to have copies. So don't let that stop you, because typically people who don't want to do this work are going to be looking for an excuse not to do it. So be careful about the stories that you tell yourself, like, I don't have a printer, I don't have enough paper, I don't have enough ink. You don't really need that much. You can just get one sheet, and even if you want to open it up on the computer and you don't have a printer, you can just copy it down and just make these lines yourself on a page. So the resentments are, who am I upset with? Who am I angry with? A lot of the times, one of the definitions of resentment that I really like is the idea of resentment is like a toxic substance, and it eats away the container that holds it. I am carrying this around, and I don't need a lot of information about this. I've been carrying this around. I know what the story is about this resentment. So all I need to do is write it down. Who is it about? And as I said, leave some room if you have a couple of resentments. And typically with some close relationships, I typically have a couple of things that I've been carrying around. And this is not the time to play, Mr. or Mrs. Nice Guy. We're not interested in, being wonderful here. We're interested in getting down and dirty and finding out what's been holding us back from becoming the people that I would like to be, that God would have me be, the person that I know that I could be, and the part of me that shows up sometimes I just don't like, and I want to find out how can I root that out and let it go. And so this is a really powerful tool, the resentment inventory, and we're going to take it from here and we're going to work through the step. And it's deep work. It's a lot of work, but it's not a lot of writing. I don't do the kind of fourth step where you have to write your life story out. but I am interested in making sure that it's thorough. And so you want to be sure that if a name comes to you, just write it down. And it could be things like the IRS, it could be your school, it could be, some kind of a value that you grew up with that your parents taught you that you resented, and, put it all down on paper. And then we'll talk about the next column. And that's when I'll also use an example that I made up. So it's just from a lot of people's fifth steps that I've heard. So I've made something up that we can take across this inventory. But meanwhile, you can get to work on this resentment inventory. You can make this copy. The PDF is attached to the YouTube video description. There's a link in the description. And I hope it works, because I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm trying. And I'm just trying to help you to see if you are ready to take this plunge with me and turn your life in a direction that you just can't even imagine. I tell people, if you really have done that third step and you're ready to do this, then you got to sit down and hold on, because your life is about to take off in ways that you could never have imagined. And I'm happy to be here with you, and I hope that this is working for you. I know a lot of people have a lot of time right now with this coronavirus thing going on. This doesn't take a lot of time, especially the way that I do it. So just follow along, do what I say. And I'm not saying that to be controlling or, I'm being a pain in the neck. I know I am. Being a New Yorker, I'm just gonna tell you, just do what I tell you to do, and we're gonna get through this together. And I promise you, you're gonna start to see changes that are gonna really excite you and want to keep coming back for more, because that's what this does. It just makes me want more of this recovery, because I see how my life changes. I see how my relationships change, and it's exciting. So I'm looking forward to doing this with you, and I'll see you in the next video on resentment inventory, second column. Thanks.